You know, a wise man once said, style is knowing who you are, what you want to say, and not giving a damn. And for the longest time, our platinum-haired protagonist Dante has embodied that philosophy. Instead of explaining his dark past, he chooses to indulge in demon hunting and the occasional slice of pizza, never acknowledging the dangers in front of him simply because he doesn't have to. But this new adventure demands his attention because it's the final arc in the Sons of Sparda Saga and one of the most personal stories in Devil May Cry.
I always wondered, why did my father give me the rebellion?
What's up guys, this is RBG bringing you my review of Devil May Cry 5. The awesome people at Capcom were generous enough to give me an early copy of the highly anticipated action hack and slasher. So I was excited to re-enter into this world that was once closed off thanks to the reboot, but was reopened after the bigwigs realized there was still some unfinished business to attend to.
This I like. The water needs turning on and those toilets need flushing.
And boy is this a grand opening. If you've been following me on my DMC5 coverage, then you know that I've been very passionate in dissecting the various trailers and TV spots, and some weren't too thrilled because they thought I may have spoiled the story for them. But after playing the game from start to finish, I can reassure you that you've only seen a fraction of what the story entails. If you're one of those dedicated DMC fans who's explored the mythos from the novels and manga, then you're not going to be disappointed. Longtime DMC scenario writer Bingo Morihashi has brought his A-game, rectifying certain story elements that ran into snags. The once scattered and messy mythos has now been neatly organized through character relationships and bloodlines, and it's all one big family affair.
My grandmother is Nell Goldstein, the gunsmith that made all your fancy weapons that you got.
You don't much look like her.
Yeah, I got my looks from my daddy. That's about all I got from him.
The story takes place several years after the Big Order of the Sword incident in Devil May Cry 4. It's June the 16th and Redgrave City is in complete disarray due to the expanding rift between the human and demon world that's caused by a blood-sucking demon tree. It's up to Dante to put on that leather duster vest and signature red jacket and get to work. But instead of being accompanied by one ally, he's now being joined by two. Nero, a reoccurring character who's taking the Devil May Cry agency on the road.
Hey, you have to hit every single bump in the road? Gonna ruin my groove.
And V, the frail and tatted up man whose motives are just as mysterious as his knowledge of demons.
I see. I know what you are. Don't worry. I'll be gentle.
Now I know I was one of many who was groaning at the fact that we now have 3 playable characters being in the main story campaign. Because let's just face it, DMC isn't really known for giving you a wide variety of levels tailored to each protagonist's skill set. Whether it was the vanilla version or special edition, in previous entries you find yourself backtracking through levels and replaying certain bosses that you defeated the first go around. Thankfully, DMC5 chooses not to use the gimmicks that its predecessors lifted wholesale for the longest time. Instead, it gives the players the option to see the story from different perspectives of the characters you play with. The story insistently takes place in disjointed areas and only gives you an idea of when certain instances happen through a calendar. And this really works to the game's advantage because thrusting the player in the midst of the chaos gives them more incentive to play further to see what was the cause of it all. For the most part, you'll find yourself slashing through environments exclusive to Dante, Nero, and V. But depending on the mission, you'll see one of your companions being controlled by another player in the background. If you just so happen to be online, you'll load into the same stage with another player who's picked a different character, allowing you to complete the level together and rate their performance. But I gotta say, I wasn't really too moved by this feature since I was sectioned off elsewhere and was too busy fighting demons to notice what the other player was doing. And sometimes I didn't notice whether I was watching an actual player or the game's AI. But this could be due to the fact that not that many people have access to the game yet. If there was anyone playing alongside me, I can say that I didn't experience any lags or stutters. But moving on, let's talk about the game's presentation. Now I know it's gotten redundant, especially with those who've been following my coverage, but it's obvious that director Hideaki Itsuno and the core Devil May Cry team have taken things from previous entries and polished them to perfection. One of the main influences I immediately noticed was Ninja Theory's DMC Devil May Cry, a game that's undergone constant vitriol due to its extreme changes of the central characters and overall premise. A pretty profound shift from what we were accustomed to with the original run, but the presentation and art design was admirable, with some giving it praise and wishing that it was another game that had a different name. Itsuno-san seems to have taken things like character introductions and the grim aesthetic and meticulously implemented them in a way that makes the universe different but somewhat familiar. Although the series has always had its fair share of dark and gritty level designs, this time around it feels more grounded and realistic. This is largely due in part to Capcom's in-house graphics engine known as the RE engine. The demons look more grotesque than ever before, with some having spatters of blood on their bodies as if they just finished devouring humans. And some of the higher level demons who are making their return from previous games have been given major updates to fit within this rich and real looking world. One of the high water marks would have to be the facial animations, which give the character so much visual flair. Since we aren't that familiar with the scan models and only know the voice and motion actors, it really makes the characters feel more real. And since we're on the topic of realism, I gotta say that it does seem like the movements of the characters are somewhat governed by the realistic world they're in. They have more fluid animations like running with swagger, and sometimes the characters run with their swords still in their hands after it's been drawn. Depending on your playstyle, this heavy emphasis on realism could make or break your experience with the game. Unlike the earlier entries, the mechanics feel a little looser, and in my opinion that's a good thing, because I don't have to twist my fingers all over the place to perform more advanced moves like jump cancel combos. Nero plays how he did in Devil May Cry 4, but with a few changes and variations to older moves. His primary moves are largely the same, using his dual barrel revolver the Blue Rose and gas powered sword the Red Queen.
I'm bagging this bitch!
But gone is his superpowered demon arm, the Devil Bringer, that has now been replaced with the Devil Breaker, a specialized artificial appendage that has 8 different types of which Nero is able to use. But here's the kicker. These demon obliterating arms can't be switched out on the fly. Instead, you'll have to equip them in a magazine in an order of your choosing. I'm still a little bummed that the developers decided to go with this approach, because in order to switch over to a different Devil Breaker in your arsenal, you have to perform a technique called a breakaway. This allows you to destroy an arm that you're currently using and use another arm that's in the second magazine slot.
Hey, Psycho! Watch the merchandise!
Hey, stop bitching and take cover!
There's definitely going to be a time where you pick your favorite Devil Breakers and discover that you're not going to be interested in all of their abilities. But what I will say is that having random breakers littered around the levels helps alleviate your frustration, especially if you've accidentally broken all of them or used them up. Each arm ranges from skills to modifiers to Nero's moveset. The Overture can be used to push enemies away with electric palm strikes, and you can thrust it into foes and detonate from a distance.
Happy birthday! Now make a wish!
The Gabora is good for mowing down enemies, specifically flying types, providing Nero with airborne movement and piercing beam attacks. And there's one of my favorites, the Buster Arm, which can execute powerful context-sensitive grapples similar to the aforementioned Devil Bringer.
Back it up, Spring Show!
There are other Devil Breakers to choose from, but I'd rather not go over their specifics because I want you to experience the gameplay for yourself. All of the arms and moves can be upgraded through the DMC shop. It plays a similar role to the lion-headed statue in the previous installments, but it has way more substance. And the presentation changes depending on the character you're using, which is really cool because you'll see someone like Nero just chilling with his feet kicked back on the van's dashboard, and V will be in the back reading his book. Speaking of V, he's become one of, if not my favorite character in all of Devil May Cry. There's just something about his stoic yet languished exterior that contributes layers to his character mystique. Hell, layers to the story, because we simply don't know what team he's playing for. The good guys, the bad guys, or for his own personal gain.
V, what the hell are you?
The ambiguity of his poetic quotes and responses makes him hard to read. Also, if you haven't noticed, he's a walking callback to enemies Dante has defeated in the past. V's combat primarily focuses on his demon companions Shadow, Griffith, and Nightmare, who are direct references from bosses in Devil May Cry 1 in moves and also names. At first, after experiencing his combat, I wasn't too particularly sold on his preternatural approach that involves punishing enemies from a distance and jumping in to completely destroy them. It felt absurdly slow as opposed to the fast style of Dante or Nero, but once I got the learning curve, I was hooked. As you can see, V's moveset is quite diverse and flexible. His pet Shadow can deal out serious damage by transforming into spikes and whips. The animations for the moves really sell how powerful it is as it transforms from a fierce feline to a giant blade that can be used as a launcher. Griffin serves as his personal point man and aerial transport.
I don't have to exist, so get rid of those demons quick, cause killing them ain't my stick. I got your back, cause dying is whack.
He does everything from shooting electric energy balls to raining down lightning blasts on surrounding enemies. What once seemed like slow and arbitrary combat eventually turns into a beautiful concerto of carnage.
I envy your optimism.
But hey, if slow and arbitrary just so happen to be your thing, then you can summon his gargantuan demon, Nightmare. Although it's sluggishly slow, it's extremely powerful and really comes in handy when you're going up against a giant boss. V can be very fragile and needs his familiars to stay hot on their toes, but this doesn't mean that his companions are completely invulnerable. Shadow and Griffith both have health meters, and if they sustain enough damage, they'll be temporarily taken out of the action, leaving V open for punishment until he revives them. This means that you not only have to choose how you move in regards to V, you also have to be mindful of your demons and how aggressively you choose to use them. One of the beauties of using V himself is his finishers. I'm pretty sure you've seen in various demos and trailers that no matter how much punishment Shadow and Griffith deal out, V has to be the one to deliver the final blow. That's the brilliance of it all, and depending on how swiftly you finish your enemies off plays a big part in how you gain stylish points. So dealing out finishers back to back in constant motion can land you triple S's for days. But moving on, let's talk about the main man himself, Dante. As I mentioned earlier, he's been thrusted into this chaotic adventure, and he's not only been tasked with saving humanity, he now has to fully take on his past and a demon who's hell-bent on ruling over everything.
Oh, king of stench and filth. I'm impressed.
I know I've gone on and on about how the development team has to go all out, especially if this is the end of the Sons of Sparda Saga and Dante's final chapter, and they've managed to do that and then some. Dante plays as you'd expect him to, and he has more to do if that makes any sense. There's no gigantic spaces that were tailored to Nero's playstyle like there was in DMC4. There's a bigger variety of enemies there's ever been, and this is by far the largest arsenal of weapons Dante has ever had in all of the games. A mechanic that we've been desperately wanting for years is the ability to swap between a variety of swords, gauntlets, and other devil arms on the fly. This complements the style switch from DMC4 perfectly because Dante feels more complete and free to perform more insane combos than ever before. This mechanic also applies to his guns, which range from his dual pistols Ebony and Ivory to his sawed-off shotgun Coyote A. Similar to Nero, Dante has a magazine or equipment set where you can rearrange the order of his swords and guns as you so choose. By simply pressing the right trigger, you can toggle through Dante's blades, and pressing the left trigger allows you to switch his guns. Your fingers are going to stay busy, but if you're a high-level DMC player, you're going to appreciate these new gameplay features. The craziness just doesn't stop there though. Dante's moveset is by far one of the most advanced you're ever going to get out of all of the characters. Most of the devil arms in his arsenal feature two different modes, like his gauntlets, the Balrog, which feature a kick and a blow mode. One would think that since all of the buttons, including the two triggers, are already used for other mechanics, that there wouldn't even be an option to switch modes with your devil arms, especially upon just viewing the game and not playing it. But by pressing the right bumper and triangle and pulling the left analog back, you can switch between blow and kick mode on the fly. There's also the sword style that allows you to change your Cerberus nunchucks to a flaming bow staff. The possibilities are endless in terms of Dante's playstyle. All of the characters now wield the ability to taunt in mid-air, and they each feature their own signature dynamic theme song that changes depending on your combos. One of the returning features that wasn't expected was DMC the Reboot style announcing. While it isn't as bombastic, it's still a nice little thing to add for fans who actually got a kick out of it. Everything is wrapped in exquisite production values. If you feel like you want to brushing up on combos, why not go to the Void mode for a little training? There's even an option to spend your red orbs on a second chance after you came so close to defeating a boss but bit the bullet. I could go on, but I think you guys get my point. Devil May Cry 5 is undoubtedly the best game in the entire series and a personal love letter to those who believed it would ever be made. Obviously, a lot of time and attention went into the development and it's worthy of competing for Game of the Year. I really had a blast playing for 17 plus hours just to go back and replay levels with a different strategy. This is definitely a title that properly ends the series the way it should have ended 8 years ago. That's why I'm giving it a 9 out of 10.
Jackpot.
With that, I'd like to conclude this video. I hope you guys enjoyed the review and found it helpful in your decision to pick the game up or not. There was so much to talk about, but I didn't want the video to be too long. It was awesome providing coverage from DMC5 up to this point, and I am still not finished. We still have character origins to go over along with other details, so be on the lookout. There was so much to talk about, but I didn't want the video to be too long. It was awesome providing coverage from DMC5 up to this point, and I am still not finished. We still have character origins to go over along with other details, so be on the lookout. But enough of my rambling. I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section. As always, I ask that you like or dislike the video. It doesn't have to be a thumbs up, it can be a thumbs down. Any feedback is good feedback and will only help me improve on future content. But if you really enjoyed the video, it would help me out tremendously if you shared it on social media outlets with all your friends and followers. Sharing really makes a difference. But this is your boy RBG signing out on another video. I will catch you guys later. Peace out.